sports, I didn't know how to accept not getting validation outside of sports. And so that is where I tried to be everything for everyone else because I thought that was the best way for people to like me. And similar to you, Kelly, I was just like, I'm going crazy in my mind
Oh
because
my.
That's what's up. Hey, come talk with us. I say TW. That's what's up. Yeah, come talk with us. I say TW.
Hello, my people. Welcome back on Talk with Osasi. If you're new here, welcome. Are you returning? Welcome back. Guys, if you haven't already, please click on the subscribe button, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell notification so you'll be the first to be notified whenever we upload a new video. Guys, today on Talk with Osasi, we are addressing mental health. Your mental health matters. And we have invited an incredible guest. He is a mental health advocate, he is a relationship coach and a life coach. I introduce to you Kendrique Coats.
as I'm finding the more and more consistent and discipline I'm staying with my workouts, the more confidence I'm gaining. And so if there's anything that I could tell anybody that watches these videos is you've got to get your body right, because as soon as you get the body right, your mind starts to get right. And as soon as you start getting your mind right, your thoughts become more aligned with who you are as a person. And the more your thoughts become more aligned with you as a person, the more your confidence grows.
Hey, Kendrick.
Kelly, hey, how are
Good.
you doing?
I'm fine. Welcome on the show. How are you feeling? I'm doing great. I'm doing good.
Good,
How
good.
are you good? How are you feeling today?
I'm amazing, and I definitely appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to the discussion today.
I'm very thrilled to have you on the show today. Thanks for showing up.
Thank you.
For those that are seeing you for the first time, can you please tell us more about yourself and what you do?
That's a great question. First and foremost, again, thank you for having me on. My background it hasn't been a linear trajectory as far as where I am today. So I started off as a health and fitness coach. I had my own private practice for many years, and it just wasn't providing me what I was looking for. And so I started transitioning into this phase where mental health became a passion of mine. And so sadly, I walked away from having the small sports performance business, and now I'm in a space where I'm training to become a licensed marriage and family therapist. And so that is more aligned with the mental health side of things and what I truly enjoy doing. And so, like I said, it hasn't been a linear progression. I've had a few pit stops here and there, but ultimately I'm very pleased with where I'm at and looking forward to growing the mental health space.
Beautiful, lovely. What made you made that change
So when I
from?
was yes, when I was coaching athletes, a lot of the conversations that we were having were around mental health, and there were also conversations about their own struggles of what was going on at home, or what was going on in many of their relationships.
Yeah.
And as I was coaching them, I found that to be more impactful as far as the person versus the actual athlete. And so that was when my transition started happening towards the mental health space.
Wow. Were there moments where you felt like doubting yourself if this is truly what your calling is, or you immediately knew this is something for me? Or you never had that doubt at all?
Mhm. There, that's a great question. There's been plenty of doubt, plenty of doubt. It may happen once a week or once every few weeks where I question, am I good enough to be where I'm at? And I always have to remind myself that I was put in the position that I'm in now for a specific reason. So I think years ago, I had some of the skills as far as connecting with people and communicating with people, but I didn't have the science and research portion of things. And so, it took me a while of my own growth to be secure in the space that I'm in. But it happens every now and then where I have what we call the imposter syndrome. I just don't feel
Mhm.
like I belong in the space. But the more and more I spend time of exploring those feelings of why I'm feeling why I don't belong in the space, the more and more I can look back and say this was the space that was designed for me to thrive in, and I'm starting to see the impact I'm having on many individuals that I'm working with.
Oh, incredible. What are the ways you build more confidence in what you do?
First and foremost, I have an amazing circle of people that care about me, that are there for me when I just need to have a phone conversation with a friend or a family member. So that's first and foremost. My small circle of people are people that care about me and they want to see me thrive. The second piece to that is my fitness, my health and fitness. So I always say, back in the sports performance or coaching space, if you look good, you perform good. And so now for me, if I look good, I can think more clearly, and it's also given me more confidence to feel secure and safe within my own body, because I think a lot of times in the past I wasn't grounded with who I was, but I also didn't necessarily take my health and nutrition as serious as I do now. And thirdly, journaling and meditation. So I as I meditate, I think about certain affirmations,
Hmm.
as far as, I am worthy, I am good enough to be in this space, I am the person that has been
Yeah.
called to do some of this work, and I journal about it. And so those are the three pieces that have mainly been one of the biggest confidence builders for me, is having a strong circle of influential people around me, and then loving people, my health and fitness, and then also meditation and journaling.
Wow, beautiful. So you have like a very beautiful, good circle of friends, and at the same time, you strengthen your mental health, or should I say, your mentality by also going to the gym and looking good and giving yourself this positive talks.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. What would you say has been the exciting moments of your career,
Mhm.
experience of your career so far?
Yeah, I would say, you just I have sometimes these epiphanies of, I've manifested things, a year ago, 2 years ago, thinking of where I wanted to be in the space that I wanted to be in. And the most exciting part of that is almost having this deja vu of I've envisioned myself in this space before. And when
Hmm.
you can feel it, and you I have this sense of just calmness in the space that I'm in. Those are my moments where I'm like, okay, this is where I deserve to be. The other part of that is also, some of the families that I talk with, or some of the parents that I talk with, and being able to assist them through some of the things that they're going through. Those are the most inspirational moments that I've felt, because it's one of those things to where when I am helping somebody, it makes me feel good as well, because I'm able to utilize the gifts that I've been
Yeah.
given in helping other people.
Oh, incredible. I really love it. You mentioned that you build your confidence by going to the gym, surrounding yourself with incredible people. Are there other ways that you build your confidence aside from these two, doing these two things?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's how I talk to myself. So if, some of the things that I used to do. So for example, if I was making breakfast in the morning and I spilled something, I would say, "Oh, I'm so stupid." But the thing is how we speak to ourselves, in my opinion, our
Yeah.
our subconscious picks up on those things. So I reframe a lot of the things that I say about myself. So if I do something in that moment, I'm not going to say that I'm stupid. Or if, I do something as I'm driving to the store, and I never say, "Oh, well, I'm an idiot," because again, the way you talk to yourself, or the way I would talk to myself
Hmm.
before, used to bring down my vibration and bring down my confidence. And
Wow.
I think the other thing too is just being able to be comfortable with who I am right now. So what I mean by that is, I think it's very easy to try to project ourselves into the future of what we want to be, and we miss the whole portion of what it is to develop and what it is to, as my grandma says, smell the roses along our journey. So I give myself grace that I am not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. So I've got to be secure and confident and comfortable that this journey is long. It's a marathon and there's going to be mistakes that happen. But I've got to make sure that I'm not where I want to be, but I'm growing into who I want to become.
Wow, that is beautiful. So you give yourself grace, you give yourself the opportunity to say it is okay to feel this way. It is okay to feel a certain way, but you keep pushing.
Absolutely. Yes.
Wow. What is one lesson that you've learned so far that has shaped you to who you are today, to the person you are today?
Mhm. The number one piece of advice, it's a great question because I get advice all the time from friends, family. I would say the number one advice that I have grown into over the past year is that I am enough. I think far too often there are things that happen in our past, and sometimes we can attach ourselves to things that have happened in the past,
Yeah,
but we have to grow into I know who I am as a person. I know where I'm going. I am enough for whatever it is I'm working towards. So I think that's the biggest advice that I've been given is you are enough to do anything you want to do in life. You just have to set your mind to it and believe in it and believe that you
exactly.
can succeed.
Wow. There are indeed those moments where we feel like we are not enough.
Mm,
And I had that too. I had some moment where I also feel like, oh wow, is there something I'm doing wrong? I don't feel that validation, but validation for me comes from within, you know.
mhm,
What would you say are the things you do to feel enough?
mhm. So again, I go back to my journaling and meditations. I have to constantly, it's like a muscle. Our brains, I like to think of is their muscles. So we have to constantly feed our brain in order to strengthen our brain. So these things that I say to myself when I am meditating always remind me that I am enough. Because if I get out of that routine for myself, then I forget. It's very
Mm,
easy to forget, those routines that I've put in place for myself. So the more and more consistent I can get with my affirmations and the vision that I have, the more and more I can continue to believe that I am enough. And again, I go back to giving myself grace. I'm not perfect, and I know that
yeah.
will be lapses or gaps in my journey that I fall off of the train and revert to some old habits. But again, that's where the routine of continuing to do the things that I've done to continue my growth of where I'm going.
Wow, incredible. Talking about habits, what would you say is, let's say, mention two bad habits of yours?
Yeah. I love the question because so often we see so many good habits, or we see maybe influencers, and we're like, man, they've got there, and they're awesome. But I would say my bad habit, um, staying consistent with my sleep, because when I don't get enough sleep, I turn into a monster. And so that's definitely one of them. And I like sweets. I have a sweet tooth, and so for me, those are the two biggest bad habits that I have for sure.
Incredible. Nice. I really like it. What would you say is one lesson failure has taught you?
One failure.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a great question. Um, Probably when I had my business, um, I had some really toxic habits around that. And the biggest one was I was a workaholic, and I failed a lot of the relationships that were in my life. A lot of times I would push people away. And it wasn't it wasn't because I didn't like the people that were around me. I was driven, but I allowed my whole identity to be this business that I was trying to build, not necessarily seeing that there were a lot of people around me that loved me and cared for me, and I was pushing them away with my toxic work habits. And so, if I had to go back, would I change it? I don't know if I would necessarily change it, because I think that was how I felt in the present moment, but I needed that to grow into who I am now. So, I look back on things like that, and it was it a failure? I think it was a one of those situations where I didn't know myself well enough to know that my behaviors were toxic. And so, I'm glad that that happened, because it has taught me now that, I can't have my whole work or whatever projects that I'm doing, I can't allow those things to become my whole identity, because then I start neglecting the relationships, and also the relationship I have with myself. I start neglecting that, and it's one of those snowballing effects where it's not a good ending. So that's probably been one of my more recent failures, I believe, is just, allowing my work to become me, and
Yeah.
just ignoring and neglecting relationships.
Uh, would you say that whole experience made you to be more self-aware?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I think back then it was just I had this vision. What for me, I was watching documentaries on, how Facebook became Facebook and all these
Yeah.
mega companies, and I was like, that's what I want to be. But that didn't work for me. And I tried to do that, and that wasn't me. So yeah, it took a lot of self-awareness of knowing who I was as a person, and knowing what I wanted in life.
Beautiful, beautiful, Kendrick. Wow, I love it. Okay, we go on a quick short break, and we will be right back. Guys, we go on a short break, and we will be right back. What if the type of people we attract in our lives is actually a reflection of who we are as people? You see, many people get into relationships and they look similar to prior relationships, whether that be with abuse or people that just bring toxic energy. You see, some people have friends that always cross their boundaries and disrespect them. And that thought just really started clicking in my head, because that used to be me back in the day, where I'd have friends that just, it wasn't a two-way street. Sometimes relationships weren't two-way streets. Hi guys, welcome back. Hey Kendrick, welcome back.
Hey,
I really love that video.
that video, wow, there was, watching it again, because it's been a while since I think I made that a year and a half ago. But yeah, it's one of those things to where, and I like to reflect and use myself as an example, because many of the things that I do talk about, I've experienced them. And, relationships should be two-way streets. In my opinion, you should always know if that other person is into you, and that could be, romantic relationships or even family members. And so that video was just trying to let people know, hey, if your relationships are just a one-way road, you may have to start, rethinking what that relationship is, and if it really means something to you, or if it's just that other person just taking from you.
And sometimes we do not recognize that it is one way. It is like one way straight. How do you call that? Yeah, one way straight.
Mm-hmm.
We don't recognize it. What are the ways we can recognize the signs that, okay, I am giving too much?
That's a great question. How do we know that if we're giving too much in a relationship? And I think one of one of the key indicators that I've seen from, just people that I've talked to is the other person reciprocating your energy? And so what I mean by that, if you are texting, we're in this digital world now where, texting is, for many people, it's the primary source of communication. Are you sending multiple text messages, and that other person is just giving you one word or one sentences compared to the paragraphs that you may be sending? If that's the case, you have to have that tough conversation with the other person. Maybe, the other person is in a bad space. Maybe that other person doesn't like texting. So that's one area. The other area is, how does that person act in front of you and when you're around them? So if you are putting your energy into the conversation, and
Yeah.
that other person isn't really reciprocating that conversation or the energy, if, I think it's wise to start, thinking about and analyzing, is this relationship good for you, or is the relationship good for the other person and the resources that you are giving that other person? I would say those are the main two things to look out for.
Incredible. Thanks for sharing that.
Mm.
What are the ways we can recognize, what is your take on setting boundaries, and what are the ways we can recognize when someone is trespassing?
Boundary setting is the most important. And while I was learning boundaries myself, it's scary. It's one of those things to where, if you set a boundary with somebody, sometimes you may feel like you are going to upset them. And so being able to set a boundary, and so what that looks like is if somebody is calling you at 10 p.m. at night and you tell them, hey, I put my phone down at 9 p.m., I'm not available after that, and they continue to call you at 10 p.m., and they're not in my opinion, they're not respecting the boundary that you have, that you don't talk after 9 p.m. Similarly, if you're talking with them and they try to talk over you all the time, and you remind them, hey, I want to have a peaceful conversation, and they
Yeah.
continue to talk over to you, again, that's disrespecting your boundary. And so how do we how do we fix that, or how do we address that? It really boils down to having the tough conversation with that person and saying, hey, I feel like you are disrespecting my boundary. Can we have a conversation about it? And just show up in that conversation with love. I know sometimes it's easy to, you know, seem like you're attacking somebody, but show up with love and
I'm going to be honest with you, Kendrick. Sorry for breaking you.
mhm,
There was a point in my life where I was so strict with my boundaries, and I can tell you right now, I lost so many friends
mhm,
just because I was setting healthy boundaries. And I got to a point where people were like, they didn't understand why I choose to be that, to set boundaries. And they're like, not getting it, telling me what I'm feeling like, and not everyone understands the reason why it is important to set boundaries. Can you tell us how this has an impact on our mental health when we're not
mhm.
setting boundaries?
Yeah, I think that, when we don't set boundaries and allow people to step over our boundaries, from what I've seen, a lot of people will suppress the emotions of anger when people step over those boundaries. And so, a lot of times it can be some sort of animosity towards the people that are stepping over those boundaries. And so mentally, we have to deal with these bottled up emotions and feelings that we can't get out or speak about, because it could be a whole list of things. Maybe it's fear or anger, but that really sometimes messes with people's heads. Sometimes it puts people in a spot of just having these feelings manifest into actions that some people may accidentally lash out on somebody because of the suppression of these angered feelings or sadness or betrayal. And so that is why we have to be conscious of the boundaries we're setting and the people that are disrespecting the boundaries, because the more and more we suppress emotions, it's going to come out some way or another. And that can be by behaviors or just verbally saying something to somebody that we didn't mean to hurt or didn't mean to say.
Wow, beautiful. What are the ways we can respectfully do this, set boundaries without coming across as, weird, or should I say tough or bad? Don't know how people see these things.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'll go back to, we have to, I like to come to conversations with love. So what I mean by that is, giving the other person grace. Maybe they just don't know how to respect a boundary, but how we can do this is just coming in and say, hey, I want to have a conversation about something. I don't want there to be any negative tension or anything like that, but this is my boundary, and I would like to discuss this. And I think a lot of times, some of those tougher conversations we avoid because we don't know the outcome. But I think, again, if the people in your life or in our lives respect us as who we are, we should be able to have, some of these more difficult conversations and just have a candid discussion like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. What are you feeling on your side? So kind of a back and forth of what are we feeling in this moment and how can we discuss and resolve these issues?
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. This also takes me to the question of people pleasing. I was doing a research on your channel. Guys, please go check him out on Kendrique Coats. And you talked about people pleasing and how you used to be a people pleaser. I would, I myself, I used to be a people pleaser. It cost me my sanity and my mental health in general. I felt taken advantage of. I felt like my generosity has been taken for granted. And there were moments where I was very stressed out and very tensed.
Mm.
So I want to know, in your case, what was this? What was people pleasing like for you, and how did you heal from it?
Hmm. I don't know if I've ever gotten that question. That's an amazing question. Um, I think a lot of my people pleasing tendencies came from being an athlete. So I was an athlete in high school and college. And so while I was on the football field, many people liked what I can do, whether it be football or even the basketball field. But then outside of that, that was the only place that I was getting validation. And so outside of sports, I didn't know how to accept not getting validation outside of sports. And so that is where I tried to be everything for everyone else because I thought that was the best way to for people to like me. And similar to you, Kelly, I was just like, I'm going crazy in my mind
Oh
because
my,
it's you start
tell
stretching
me.
yourself thin. It's like, oh, this person needs me over here, that person needs me over there. What really helped me, and this is something I always talk about to people, finding a good therapist, finding a good psychotherapist, because I didn't know how to set boundaries for myself. I didn't know how to get out of the habit of people pleasing. And thankfully, I had a therapist that really just boiled down the root cause of why I was people pleasing so much.
Pleasing.
Yeah.
Oh
And
wow.
so, it was a long journey, but I'm thankful that I invested in a good therapist.
Wow, beautiful. Going to therapist is not welcomed in the Black community.
Hmm.
And I have thought I spoke to some Black great guys, and they do not recommend therapy.
Mm.
For them, this is not something we talk about. When you're going through stuff, you deal with it on your own. What would be your advice for men out there in the Black community around the world with therapy?
Hmm. First and foremost, you don't have to have an issue or a disease to seek out therapy. Therapy can be used for a number of things. Grieving, so if you've lost a parent or a sibling, who do you go to grieve that understands you from a professional standpoint? The second thing I'll say is we have trauma that we don't even know about, meaning
Yeah.
we can go years back to our grandparents and our great grandparents. Some of
Mhm.
those traumatic experiences that they've gone through has been passed down to us. So a lot of times we don't know that we need therapy until something serious happens in our life. What I'll say is we spend time taking our cars to the auto mechanic to get maintenance. We take our we get maintenance done on our homes. We get lawn care done on our lawns. We go to the dentist when we need our teeth fixed. What happens when we have something going on in here?
Yeah, yeah, good one.
Who do we go to? And so that's what I would say is mental health is a silent killer.
Yeah,
You could be going through stress, you could be going through anything. And so that's what I would say is you may not think you need it, but if you're reacting to people in hurtful and angry ways, or if you have relationships with your parents that have dissolved for whatever reason, or if you have situations where you have toxic relationship after toxic relationship, it might be something to consider therapy.
beautiful, beautiful. Wow, I need some moment to let that all sink in. Wow. Okay, this takes me to my next question, Kendrick. I really love your perspective on these topics. I don't know if you're familiar with manipulation, but how do we recognize a toxic relationship? Or should I say a manipulative relationship?
Mm. I was just having a conversation about this the other day. I think one of the big red flags that people can look out for is when we get into relationships and that other person is just showering us with attention, text messages, phone calls, gifts. Usually, because the thing is, like, is this person going to keep this up for 6 months, 12 months, a year? When's it going to drop off? And so those are things that I look for when I get into relationships, is how does this person act when I'm not giving the person
Yeah,
attention versus when I am.
I'm giving
And
attention.
mhm. And so that is one of the biggest, I guess, manipulative behaviors that I've seen and have talked to other guys as well, is if this person is giving you all of this attention right off the get-go of meeting, that's usually a red flag for something and definitely keep your eyes open of what they're saying and how they're acting.
Oh, wow, guys, watch out for that. For that style. Oh wow. Well, sometimes this can also be very confusing, when someone is showering you with so much attention and gifts and you feel loved. You can hardly tell that you're being manipulated.
Mm,
And until you get to that rock bottom and you start realizing that, oh wow, and I know, right?
mhm,
What would you say is the biggest killer of relationship? In
mm.
Yeah,
I would say probably communication. Communication is one of the things where there's just, you're dealing with complex human beings. First of all, we're very complex, and not communicating our needs and our wants is one of the ways to have a relationship go sideways. Because the thing is we don't speak about what it is we want and what
yeah,
it is that we need. Again, we're suppressing our emotions and suppressing our feelings, and we end up having some type of animosity or anger towards the other person. And I'll add in finances as well, especially if people that either are living together or married. Finances seem to be one of those things that is a killer of a lot of marriages. Financial struggling with finances. So fellas out there, or women out there, if you're getting married to anyone, that's something to have a conversation about. How's the other person with their finances, and how do they communicate when they're stressed or when they're mad?
wow. Communication. Beautiful. Yeah, we need to know what the expectations are from both sides.
Yep.
Incredible. Kendrick, thank you so much for sharing this. We go on a quick short break and we come back with agree to disagree questions.
Looking forward to it.
That's what's up. Hey, come talk with OsasyTV. That's what's up. Yeah, come talk with OsasyTV.
Hi guys, welcome back. Hey Kendrick, welcome back.
Hey, Kelly.
Are you religious?
I am more spiritual than religious.
Okay, nice. So would you say what do you agree on? Cleanliness is next to godliness. Do you agree or disagree?
Ooh, um, that's a great question. Cleanliness or godliness, you say? So, and
Cleanliness is next to
next to,
godliness.
okay.
Because, Kendrick, when I was growing up, I mean, I'm still growing, of course, but, when we were little kids, parents used to tell us, clean your room because I come from a very religious family. And my mom always say, cleanliness is next to godliness. But for some reason, growing at this current age, I kind of think opposite.
Mhm,
I'm like, okay, maybe that is not very true.
mhm,
Like, to me, it is more your hearts should be cleaned, not your. I mean, it's good to have your space clean, of course, but growing up, they used to tell me, clean your room so you'll be next to God.
mm.
Like, God doesn't love people that are dirty, but I always think And I'm like, okay, wow, okay. So what would you say? That this is the reason I asked if you're religious. So
Yeah.
what is your take on this?
I would say I definitely disagree. And the reason being is because, and I, again, I use myself as an example. There are certain times within my life where my life gets so busy. And so, yeah, my room may not be as clean as it should be. The kitchen may not be as clean as it should be. But to say that I'm a bad person for doing that, I don't think there's any correlation with that. But then I'll also say cleanliness of who you are as a person, cleanliness of what you represent. I
Your
could see
heart.
maybe some alignment there, but overall, yeah, I think that we all go through certain things in our lives that may not put us in that cleanliness category, and that's okay because we are evolving human beings and we're still learning what life is and what life means. So I think it's okay to have, some hiccups along the road, but I don't think it, defies us as somebody as being um, lesser than a human being unless you have a dirty soul.
Beautiful. I also think the same. I mean, there's nothing you cannot tell me otherwise that when you're there, when your room is dirty, then you won't be loved by God or something. The heart, the soul, it needs to be clean and pure. I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you. Men don't cry. I mean, what is your take on this? Do you agree or disagree?
In general, I agree. Men don't cry.
So you're saying that men should not cry.
I think men should cry.
Okay.
And the reason being, again, we suppress all these emotions. If I've been to funerals where there's not a single man that has cried, and there's, that person that has passed away has been extremely close to those people. And so I think it's a suppression of emotion, but then it's also this idea that men always have to have it put together when I'll be the first one. I don't have it put together a lot of the times. And so being able to cry and get those emotions out with people you love, but more specifically with other men, that is where, I think that's a safe space, because a lot of men think, well, if I cry in front of my partner, or cry in front of my spouse, then I'm lesser of a man. And those are legitimate feelings. And that's why it's
Yeah.
important to have other men around.
Yeah. Subconsciously, you growing up when you've been told you should not cry and you're weak because of you crying or you're too soft, you just get to that stage in your life where you don't even recognize that you were suppressing all these emotions
Mhm.
and you're not crying, and you feel like, oh wow, I'm being strong, when basically you were not. And this happened to me also. I was told a lot that yeah, I should be strong. I'm not. I'm weak. Whenever I cry, it's just meant you should not cry as a boy. And I know that getting to this stage of my life now, thinking about it, I feel like actually it is the opposite. Crying makes you much stronger. Crying makes you more stronger. And I notice this also when I'm watching movies. I just so emotional, so
Mhm.
emotional. I'm just like putting myself in the character's shoes, and I just see tears dropping out of my eyes. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my god, what is going on here? But I love it, I really do, because it helps me to get rid of those negative emotions.
Mhm.
So, yeah, guys, please, if you have to cry, go ahead and cry. Kendrick, and forgive and forget. What is your take on this? Do you agree or disagree? So, forgive and forget.
Some tough questions. Um, I'm in the camp that I agree that forgive what has happened. And I know it can be tough, but the thing is, well, I'll start off. I agree. Forgive and forget. The reason being is because if we sit with something that has happened to us, or if we've sit with negative emotions and we continue moving forward, it's almost like driving your car continually looking in the rear view mirror. sometimes we do have to move on from things that have passed, that has happened in the past. Now, I understand that that may not be the case for anybody, but for me, I do agree that I do forgive, and then I just move on.
Beautiful. Moving on. Yeah. But is moving on not forgiving? Is that forgetting?
No, because I think that we can forgive something, and we can move on. And for example, if somebody has betrayed me and it was a close friend, I can forgive that person and I can move on. But if I have more interactions with that person, I'm going to address that person differently versus somebody that I trust. So yeah, I've moved on from that situation, but I haven't necessarily forgotten how that person has treated me.
Beautiful. That's exactly what how I also see it. So for me, it is I will forgive you when you betray or hurt me.
Hmm.
I will forgive you, but I will not forget the lessons that that situation has taught me.
Hmm.
So I will not forget that you've once did that bad thing to me. I cannot forget it. It's just like I will move on, forgive myself. I mean, by forgiving you, I'm forgiving myself, obviously, but I can be in the same space with that person, but I am more conscious of the things I say or do around you. So it's not like I have the whole situation and drama in my head, but it's more like okay, I'm more thinking ahead. I'll put
Hmm.
it that way. So I'm not looking backward, I'm looking forward, but
Hmm.
I'm not going to forget what that has taught me, what lesson that situation has taught me. Very beautiful. Okay, so we have come to the end of today's show, Kendrick. Thank you so much for the beautiful wisdom you've shared today on Talk with Osasi. I am really, really grateful.
And thank you for having me on. I definitely enjoyed the conversation and some of the tough questions that you asked me. So I appreciate it.
Wow. Well, I did my research and I loved your videos. I'm telling you, I really do love how you ask your guests how they're feeling mentally, physically, and spiritually. That is a very good one. Beautiful.
Thank you.
So, where can people find you?
Yeah, y'all can find me on social media at Kendrique Coats. The first name Kendrique, last name Coats. I'm more active on Instagram right now, so if anybody has any questions that y'all want to ask me, you can find me at Instagram at Kendrique Coats.
All right, guys, please go check him out on Instagram, Kendrick Coats. Kendrick, till next time, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Bye. Ciao.